It's a pleasure to have you join us on the this other discussion segment. We have in our midst Ame Zion Abba. He's a mental health expert, and we have dragged him here to talk to us about issues around mental health assessment in Nigeria. Abba, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
So let's get to the brass tack. Issue of mental health.
Yes, sir.
How is it? What's your overall assessment of mental health situation in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much for that beautiful question. You see, when we talk about the issue of mental health in Nigeria, I would like to appreciate a lot of efforts that have been made from at the federal level, from the Ministry of Health and then other stakeholders. But overall, I must say that the issues around mental health in Nigeria is appalling. Why appalling is because if you take it from mental health reforms to mental health services to mental health structures in the country to the budgetary allocation to mental health, as it were, in terms of care for Nigerians, it is really appalling. And I just hope that we'll have the time to look into all of these segments, because mental health is very critical, and for a government or a nation to downplay or not prioritize the issues around mental health, it means the issues around generally public health and the health of your citizenry is not in view.
Okay, so maybe you can walk us through what exactly is mental health. When we are talking of mental health, what does it connote?
Fantastic. So I will just quickly give you a definition drawing from WHO. So WHO tells us in clear terms 4 key things in defining mental health. One is that individuals, in this case Nigerians, are able to identify or realize their potentials or ability, and are able to come up with coping mechanisms to manage their stress, daily stress for that matter, and also remain productive for contribute to their communities. So this all encompasses the definition of mental health, where the emotion, where the feelings and the behaviors of an individual is well calculated and under control.
Is it true that Nigeria are becoming more suicidal because of the daily challenges they face?
Well, I mean, there are no clear-cut surveys or studies, to prove this. But I mean, we can clearly see that there are increasingly predisposing factors that Nigerians are having to cope or face daily. That is causing them to be vulnerable to mental disorders. So of course, if you say that there is an increasing rate of suicide, I mean, from what we see, I mean, there have been some reports recently that we see on the media, on social media, of people, taking their lives. So it is very, very possible that yes, there is an increasing concern around suicide in Nigeria, and this is not far from some of the clear-cut risk factors and predisposing factors that are glaring to everybody.
Okay, so what are the signs that one would normally have if you are prone to mental health challenge? If somebody is having mental health issues, is it that when somebody runs mad is when we say he has mental health challenge?
No.
What are those signs or symptoms of mental health challenge?
Because it is not until it becomes psychotic. I mean, you're now taking off clothes, you're now eating from the waist bin. That's not when we only begin to sense the dangers of mental health. Yes, that's it. That's like the climax. That's like the zenith of it, where people are beginning to become psychotic, are losing touch with reality, and then begin to hear voices or begin to manifest in some other way. So but there are a lot of things to look out for, because mental disorders, there's a spectrum of it. So ranging from the commonness of it, from depression, anxiety disorder, and then PTSD, and then so many other mental disorders. However, for general mental disorders, one of the things we should begin to look at when you see that an individual is no longer having interest on things that used to matter to him before now, where you see an individual beginning to lose appetite or gain too much appetite or lose weight or gain weight or begin to want to be by himself, not want to associate, not want to relate, right? Or not want to like participate, you know. I mean, this is somebody that is always very good in group work, at work, or in the family, you know, no longer want to participate in worship center. So when there are all these signs and symptoms, it just clearly tells that something is wrong with the mental health of this person. And for the mental well-being of such an individual to be quickly attended to, it is very important that either the parent, the caregivers, or the person himself will please seek for support, because when it moves from, you know, the mild state to moderate and it becomes severe, you know, managing it will become more expensive, and then it's going to take more time, you know, to do that.
So, somebody said many are mad, but only few are roving. Do you subscribe to that school of thought?
Yeah, you see, why am I not subscribed absolutely to it is because that that is not scientifically proven, right? And then again, because there are no too many research works ongoing in the country to really prove, you know, the exact population of Nigerians that have come down or that are likely to come down with mental health disorder. Right now, we know that 1 out of 5 will likely come down with mental disorders in their lifetime. So it is something that should be looked at, you know, in terms of people giving attention to research, and that's why we like to appreciate some of our donors, our sponsors.
So
you
know,
tell us
about where and what have you been able to do? Who are your donors? Who have been supporting you? You talked earlier on about the funding being very paltry from federal government and the state. So where have you been able to mobilize resources to do some of the advocacy you've been engaging? Yeah,
thank you very much for that beautiful question. For the past 7 years, it's not been really easy because, like I said, it's very clear that funding for mental health has really been very poor. It's not been an area that a lot of donors or a lot of persons give attention to, or maybe are willing to put in their money there because of how they perceive it. But I like to say here that I want to thankfully appreciate the EU ACT program and the British Council for how they have supported us since 2019 in our structural development. Also, they took out time to fund consultancy coaching for our program and also our finance, so that we have a very solid structure. And right now we're actually implementing a project called the Adolescent Mental Health Project in FCT, where we developed a handbook, an adolescent handbook specifically for adolescents, where we try to speak about the mental health of an adolescent, a Nigerian child. We talked about the issue of drug substance misuse. We talked about the issue of bullying, the issue of gender-based violence, gender-based violence, the issue of building resilience, and also again we talked about the issue of the media impact on this particular population. So it's just been thankful that some particular donors like that I did mention, the EU British ACT program, have been very supportive. We are currently running a 12-month program by their support, and also we have also gained support from the UNODC, United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, to also carry out a project, a 14-month project on drugs, where we again targeted 5 specific stakeholders: the religious leaders, the traditional leaders, the media, the road transport workers, and teachers. And these are very critical stakeholders that can help us drive the literacy campaign on mental health and drug use problems in the country.
Yeah, you brought me to a very good issue of a very common challenge we have. The NDLEA says that we have, what's the percentage of Nigerian youths abusing substance abuse?
Correct.
And we now have, shockingly, religious leaders who are caught trafficking drugs. One happened recently,
yes,
just a few days ago, that was publicized. A whole general overseer of a church caught trying to traffic drug to cannabis to Kenya. What's your take on this? The issue of substance, you are also an expert in that area. The issue of substance abuse, what is luring people? Is it a solution to mental health challenge that if you are feeling depressed, the next thing is to light up a cannabis or a cigarette or shisha You know,
Yes.
and
You know,
believe yourself.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. You see, it's not a solution to solving issues of mental disorders. It's not close to a solution. It's just unfortunate that people seek temporal solutions or temporal high feelings or euphoric feelings just to assume that they can get away from their pains or from the kind of feelings or emotions that they're going through at the particular moment. This is not true. This cannot give any lasting or healthy solution. I like to again say here that it's very, very pathetic that people who should again drive, you know, the drug demand supply are now being involved, you know, in again increasing the concerns, you know, of the drug supply concerns across the country or even the continent. So it's really, really pathetic that this is happening. But I like to say here that the issue around drug demand reduction is something that cut across all stakeholders. We must see ourselves, whether, like I did mention earlier, whether you are a parent, whether you are a religious leader, whether you're a traditional leader, whether you're in the media sector or road transport sector or any sector. Please understand that when it comes to the issue of drug demand reduction, which can only help, you know, to curtail the issue of the increasing concerns that we see in our country in the subject of drugs that is really ravaging, you know, a very productive population, the youthful population of the country. You know, all these stakeholders that I did mention must rise to the occasion and put their hands on deck so that this can be achieved. Otherwise, it's not a solution that we can only envisage from NDLA. Right, NDLA they're doing their best, and the most of their energy is channeled through drug supply reduction. So we must again get more stakeholders to be interested in the drug demand reduction, which will really help, because people need to understand that it is not only about criminalizing the drug issue, but again we need to also begin to look at it from the health implication on the users, because there are quite a lot of drug use problems that Nigerians come down with, the adolescents, the youth of this country come down with.
Okay, now let's understand this. How does substance abuse, what's the nexus between substance abuse and mental health challenge? Some will tell you that in other climes, in fact, there is a governor that said we should even plant and export cannabis. And the Ondo State governor once advocated, in fact, last year or 2 years ago, that we can have a controlled cultivation of cannabis and export and earn money from it. And there are people who tell you that even the security agencies who are arresting people for drug abuse, so many of them are also abusing drugs. And, you know, people who feel that if you take 1 or 2 sticks of cigarette, it does not do you much harm. What have you to say about this? What is the borderline between drug intake and moving
mental
to
health.
mental health?
All right.
challenge?
Thank you very much, my dear brother. You see, the issue of drugs and how it relates to mental health is very, very, very common, very related. And I like to quickly say here that like the legalization of the cultivation of cannabis is something that we need to look at very carefully, because if we are driving for the legalization, is this just the cultivation? Is it the production? Is it the man? You know, so there are a lot of things, you know, in it that we really need to x-ray to be sure what exactly are we driving for legalization in respect to cannabis. Now, coming to talk about how it relates with mental health, it will interest you to know that some of these licit or illicit drugs, all right, have the capacity to suppress the central nervous system. Now, when the central nervous system of an individual, you know, is being altered by the intake of drugs, maybe it could just be maybe experimental. It could just be that, yes, the person is already dependent on it. But I can tell you that the more depressed, the more suppressed that central nervous system is, the slower it gets, and the more likelihood that individual can come down with depression.
Okay.
And then other mental disorders again can creep in.
Okay. You know what, Abba? We can't exhaust this today. You know the challenge we had.
Yes.
We actually created more time for us to extract this, but because of certain exigencies, we won't be able to go beyond it. But definitely, you have my word that you will be back on the program where we'll dedicate sufficient time to discuss this issue of mental health. Yeah. So we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at International Women's Day and what it means for Nigeria. Thank you very much, Abba.
Thank you very much for having me.